Okay, so we're going to tackle a really provocative idea today, one that kind of flips a common belief right on its head. We're going to explore the argument that, in a lot of important ways, American food is actually healthier than European food. Now, this whole perspective comes from our source material for this explainer, a really deep dive from Mr. Factual. Right, so let's get straight to it. The big question on everyone's mind, is European food really healthier? I mean, we've all seen the posts online, heard the stories from friends who travel, and it just seems like a given. But is it actually true? And yeah, this is the story we all know, right? It's a super powerful narrative. Europe has fewer chemicals, the bread is somehow magical, and their regulations are just tougher. It's an idea that it feels right. All right, so let's dive into the first big idea here. The source material we're digging into argues that this whole story isn't just a little bit off, it's actually one of the biggest myths in the food world. It's time to challenge that common belief. So here's the big counter-argument from the source. Far from being this junk food wasteland, the US food system is actually one of the most nutritionally advanced on the planet. The idea is that it's been engineered on a massive scale to improve public health, offering things like fortified foods and high-protein options that you just don't find as easily everywhere else. Okay, and this is where the argument gets really interesting. It doesn't start by talking about what's taken out of food, but what is deliberately put in. And this, according to the source, reveals what you could call a hidden nutrient gap. So in the United States, a ton of our staple foods, things like flour, cereal, milk, are required by law to be fortified with essential nutrients, things like iron, folic acid, vitamin D. But as the source points out, a lot of the European equivalents, while they might look more natural or rustic, often aren't fortified, and that can create a real gap in nutrition. And this is a huge deal. We're not talking about small changes. The source makes it clear that these fortification policies have led to massive public health victories in the US. For instance, adding folic acid to grains has just dramatically slashed the rates of horrible neural tube defects in babies. This is policy that directly fights serious health problems for the whole population. And then there's protein. That's the next big point. The American market has this incredible variety of high-protein foods, whether you're talking lean meats or all the plant-based options out there. And that's absolutely crucial, right? Protein is key for feeling full, for maintaining muscle, and for just keeping your metabolism healthy. Okay, but the argument doesn't just stop with what's in the food. The next part tackles that big idea about Europe having stricter regulations and asks us to kind of rethink what a healthy rule really is. So the source basically says, hold on a second. Just because a country has a longer list of banned ingredients, does that really make its food system healthier? The real question is why things are banned and what the science actually says. And this gets to the heart of the US philosophy on this. It's called dose-based risk assessment. The focus isn't on whether some scary-sounding chemicals in a food at all, but whether the tiny, tiny amount you might actually eat is safe. It's all based on rigorous science. That old saying, the dose makes the poison? So you can really see the split here. The US system asks, is the dose safe? And allows things that are proven safe in very small amounts. The EU, on the other hand, often uses a precautionary principle. That can lead to banning an ingredient if there's any potential concern, no matter how small the dose, sometimes based more on public perception than hard science. All right, so we've talked nutrients, we've talked rules, but according to the source, the third big piece of this puzzle is all about the market itself. It's about the power of consumer choice. Think about it this way. European food culture is amazing, right? But it can be a bit more consistent, more traditional. The American system, though, it's all about flexibility. You can walk into a single grocery store and find the most heavily processed snack food right next to a completely organic, whole food, nutrient-packed meal. The variety is just staggering. So why is that a big deal? Well, because that huge range of options gives you the power. If you want to build a diet that's super high in protein, or low carb, or vegan, or gluten-free, the American system gives you all the tools and the transparent labeling to make that happen. So when you put it all together, the nutrient fortification, the different approach to rules, and the power of choice, the source says, hey, maybe it's time to look at this whole debate differently. It's about moving past the simple myth and getting to a much more nuanced picture. So let's be super clear. The point here isn't that everything in an American grocery store is healthy. Of course not. The argument is that the system itself gives you more tools to build a healthy life. Tools like nutrient-dense fortified foods, tons of high-protein options, really detailed labels, and just massive consumer choice.
And that really leaves us with this one big question to chew on. When we're trying to figure out what makes a food system healthy, what do we value more? A system with really strict rules that create a uniform standard for everyone, or a system that gives individuals the ultimate flexibility and choice to decide for themselves?